Hello, so I'm out and about here today, just capturing my post-episode follow-up thoughts to episode 9, which of course was Counter Coffee, Will's mobile coffee setup. Hope you've watched it. If you have, hopefully you enjoyed the episode. If not, as ever, I'll put the link to it in the description for this episode. And before I get going, I will say the usual thing. Please do subscribe, like, comment. But most importantly, if you know anybody who you'd feel would benefit from this project, this channel, perhaps young people, people who are looking for career inspiration, career advice, or who, just would be interested in hearing the stories of people who have been there. They've had their ups and downs and they've got some interesting tales to tell. Please do share that with them. Episode 9, I filmed pretty much all of that in Malvern. So most of the episode actually was one of the typical days that Will is to be found at the foot of the Malvern Hills. Some footage was filmed at the Three Counties show a few weeks earlier before I did the bulk of the episode where Will was to be found. He's got his regular spots, but of course, things like events and festivals and so on, that's where he really makes his money. That's where it's really important, obviously, to get in if you've got a setup like that. So there were a few really interesting things about that episode. One was that there's obviously been a growth in these sorts of very nimble, more agile setups for things like refreshments, drinks, leisure, hospitality.
I don't even know how much it would cost to set up a cafe, but probably sort of 50,000 plus, by a lot, maybe quite a lot more plus than that, I guess. The fact that you can be light on your feet. So if something's not working, say you realise it's really quiet wherever you set up, like here, you can move somewhere else. There is red tape involved. You can't just go anywhere, but you do have that flexibility, which makes such a difference. If you're in a cafe and you realise the footfall just is not great there, I mean, you're stuck, really. The other thing is margin. So my margin is a lot better than a cafe. So a cafe's, if they're lucky, they're working 10% margin. I would say a lot of them more like 5%, where this I aim at 30%. So it's a big difference, definitely. Because I have, it's a lot lower operating costs.
The costs at the moment, anything to do with property, anything to do with utility, rent, all these sorts of bills have gone up and up. The high street is not what it once was. Are we going to return there? Hopefully, yes, at some point in the future. But for somebody at school, at college, at university, or maybe even in work, who wants to get into that sort of sector now, the barriers to entry in terms of costs are just ridiculous. If you've got backing, great. But if you haven't, something like Will's got, I think, is a really good option. So it was interesting to get his thoughts on that. Sometimes I speak with people who are doing a particular job and they always wanted to do that, or they had a good idea that they would head in that direction. Will has he's had far more, let's say, meandering path.
I'm in a very different place to where I thought I would be when I was, say, 16. And I think it's key just to be open-minded and to think, that nothing is set in stone, that you can even change your career, midway through life, and it it's totally possible these days. Say yes as much as possible would be something. Things come up all the time, and it's so easy to think, oh, do I want to do that? But I think just give it a go. That's kind of what I've always done, and I've experienced a lot of things, and it's been a good ride so far. So we'll see where it goes from here, though.
He started out wanting to do photography. He's obviously got creative side to him. He did some travelling. They say travelling broadens the mind. Travelling allowed him to indulge a little bit more in photography, but also he got into wine.
So I worked in the wine trade for 20 odd years, which is, a great job, varied and travel and all sorts of things. But I think I wanted to really work for myself and get away from wine. And coffee has a lot of parallels, the way you do things like tastings. They call it cuppings. The flavour profiles, the different types of coffees, and the care that's taken, from the growers to the roasters to the actual end product where the barista makes the coffee. It is there's a lot of parallels which really interest me, and
I think what he learnt in the wine trade was that he is absolutely comfortable with long hours, with hard work, with being customer facing, client facing, with understanding what goes into that particular industry. What makes good wine. A little bit about standards. And a lot of the things that were transferable to the world of coffee. So when he did get to the point where a career change was something that he was looking at, in his case actually because of COVID, which is a very familiar story, it was a case of he had a lot of transferable skills. And transferable skills, I think, is a topic, a recurring theme really. If you look at jobs, careers, today versus 20, 30, 40 years ago, far fewer people are going to stay in the same role. And it's not just a case of moving company, but it's a case of, in some cases, just moving profession. The thing that's related to that, of course, is there are a lot of jobs that people are doing today that didn't exist 10, 20 years ago. And by the same token, there will be jobs 10, 20 years' time that we can't imagine today. So obviously, there have always been coffee shops, there have always been cafes, but mobile catering, coffee trailers, things like that, they've really grown out of changing needs and changes in the overall society and the economy. So the point is Will was able to roll with that. He had all those basic skills. So although it was a very, very different industry, as I say, there were transferable skills. So really worth hearing his story on that, and some of the points about what you need to succeed in that particular field.
To make a really good cup of coffee is quite simple, but it's amazing how many people can't do it as well. So I think that's got to be the basis. And if you're interested in that industry, just try and soak up as much about it as possible. And there are lots of different parts to it. I think you need to be able to get on with people, and a lot of different types of people. It's normally working in a team, so it's important to be able to get on with your co-workers. But at the end of the day, you're customer facing, and you've got to put up with the public. So if you're not a great fan of them, it may be worth staying away from it.
He talked about being able to speak to customers, being able to get on with people, attention to detail, resilience, all those sorts of things. So made for a really interesting episode, and he does make a good cup of coffee. I will testify to that. So hopefully you watched it and enjoyed it. If not, as I say, the link is in the description for this video. And hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, thank you.